So I'm going to declare it. If you were born in the 80s and back, then you probably see hip hop very differently than somebody who was born in the 90s and the 2000s. Hip hop has definitely changed. Is it for the better? Is it for the worse? Well, depends on who you ask. I've been a hip hop fan for about 30 years, and I gotta say that I've seen quite a drastic change. I've noticed that I'm not as into the new stuff that comes out as I am into stuff that, pre-2000s. I just feel like artists were a lot more creative and were a lot more different back then, as where nowadays everybody just seems to try to want to sound like each other. In the 90s, it was crazy because you had to be different. You had to be creative. Otherwise, you wouldn't stand out and nobody would pay attention to you. Like, you actually had to be different. But nowadays, it kind of feels like a lot of rappers just kind of want to sound like each other. They want to find the style that sells, whatever sells, and they want to just flood the market with it. As I look around nowadays, I see so many rappers, I'm not even going to list them. So many rappers that are either industry plants or they are appropriators of hip-hop culture, or they're just straight up culture vultures altogether. Now let me explain what those terms are. A culture vulture is somebody who uses the aesthetics or borrows from a culture, whether it's the sound or the aesthetics or the style, and turns it into their own thing so that they can make money off of it without showing any respect to the culture or the people that created that culture. They're just there to line their pockets. This is why there's some artists out there that never get warm reception. People call them out for what they are. This is an industry plant. This is an artist who the industry basically said, look, we need a good-looking person. We're going to write rhymes for them. We're going to produce for them. And we're going to give them a backstory so they can sell records. And nobody seemed to mind as long as the music was catchy and it was making you dance and it was making money for these artists. And somewhere along the way, hip-hop became flooded by so many of these culture vultures that they started to kind of run the game. And things started to kind of get out of hand. I think the most prime example would be Drake. Drake probably being the most successful of these culture vultures. People don't realize, and it kind of came out when he battled Meek Mill, it's that he had ghostwriters, and there were a lot of people that just didn't care. Look, there's nothing wrong with what Drake is as an artist, but be honest about it. Say, I don't write these rhymes. I'm not really this MC. I'm just a performer. I'm just an act. And then people would be like, okay, but when you try to lay claim to the throne, that's when people have a problem with it. This is why by default there was a lot of people cheering on Kendrick Lamar, because Kendrick Lamar represents the opposite of that. He's somebody who put work into his pen game. He's somebody who put time in to his craft to make his music sound as good as possible. He didn't try to go super lyrical. He just wanted to tell good stories and make good music. And he worked on his craft. As where somebody like Drake has ghostwriters that feed him all of these bars, feed him all of these lines and all of these songs. He's not the real thing. So it was nice to watch Kendrick Lamar win, because it just showed, it was kind of like watching an MMA fighter take on another MMA fighter that takes steroids, but the real MMA fighter won, not the guy with the steroids and all the cheating. And another thing that drives me crazy that I see is, like, for instance, this influx of conservative rap. Let me tell you something. Hip hop is not Republican at all. It was created to oppose the things that Republicans are trying to uphold. So by taking hip hop and making Republican hip hop and also lining your pockets with it, and then trying to attack the very essence of why it was created in the first place, is the biggest racial slap in the face, and you know it. It's shameful to see. And they're gonna pretend like, oh no, hip hop is for everybody. No, man, let me tell you, you will always be a guest. Unless you are an African American or a Latino, you will always be a guest in hip hop. Always. You just have to grow some balls and get used to it. Take a deep breath and say, you know what? I will always be a guest. And if you are a guest and you do not show respect in someone else's house, don't be surprised when they go on a hunt to take you down or they celebrate your downfall. You see, this is more than just a genre of music. It is a culture. And it's something to be appreciated and to be respected. It has a rich legacy and a purpose. And I see a lot of abuse of it. So kids, this is what I want to say. I'm not saying pick up a pen and be Mr. Lyrical, though you can if you want. What I'm saying is be creative. Don't try to sound like other people. All right? It doesn't matter what race you are. You can participate in hip hop, but do it the real way. Build some actual talent. Work on your pen game. Work on your creativity. If you want to make beats, work on that. But don't do any of this fake stuff. There's already plenty of it. It's been done. I think hip hop is ready to see talent again. And look, there's nothing wrong with getting some money off of your craft. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But definitely try to put out some really good, interesting music, because that is how you obtain immortality, because that is what people are going to remember you by long after you die. It's a very legacy creating thing to leave behind amazing music for people to cherish. So with that, I'm checking out. Just something to think about.